We're back with part 3 of the Melbourne Pro Punters panel, and as viewers will have seen, I've had enough to drink now. So we're going to talk about Cobalt. I'm going to have a short nap, and I'll let these two blokes slug it out. So
I'll jump in. I mean, like, hopefully we won't bore everyone to tears. But last week, you know, I stated my case about the Cobalt stuff, and Ralphie wasn't here to defend himself. He's here today.
But more to the point, this time last year, I joined you two and DK. I mentioned something about Cobalt. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 glass eyes, and I thought, fair enough, punters don't want to talk about Cobalt. I haven't brought it up since. I have an RDO, and it's like you guys are trying to do pictures to join Epsom Road.
The only thing that we could do in this situation is that was all DK's fault.
You know, I think...
I like the fact that you blame someone who's not here.
Because Coppola fell into DK's sphere of...
Right.
It hadn't affected him up until then.
And I had some views on the other horses, some of the other runners.
Yes.
And then, as it turned out, the minute we finished the show last week, finished recording, went into the bar, and there on racing.com was Kane Harris letting go.
He was just on the boundary, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. So anyway, what's you watched last week, Jay? What do you want to say?
My starting point is Cobalt, and the best line I've heard, and I'll go with it, and I'll bet unlike other, I won't steal it. Max Presnell, who said, the science is suggesting, he said, never mind, the science is suggesting, I'm saying it wouldn't make a flea jump. I'm with him. Cobalt is not performance enhancing. There is not one thing that I've seen from figures, that's facts, that matches up with all these Cobalt positives that are occurring. Victorian racing is the area.
Let's talk about the most
study.
extreme one. Tell me about testorism.
Right. So I've done a lot of homework from things that you brought up last week. So we'll go through any of the things you brought up. I'll go through them. So I looked up the testorism rhythm thing. So the Victorian trainers, and in general all the trainers, they've been like in the low hundreds.
Yeah. So it was a high one. It was in the thousands.
It was in the mid thousands.
Yeah.
So my next question is, if it was so dominant in the, what's to say there was nothing else there?
No, but they could be. That's the point. Like, I think we're just using the word Cobalt as a description of some form of cocktail, or you know, something that's happened to it. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter, Ralph. The point is that someone has been able to do something to that horse to get it to race at a level above its, you know, it's not what it can normally achieve. Right. Okay, and and then subsequently they've returned positive tests to Cobalt, not something else, right? So who knows what else is involved?
That's right.
Okay,
so we don't know,
and we don't know. But
so Sam Kavanagh, I did look. So this Sam Kavanagh's tests also included caffeine, steroids, and there was a third name escaped. So I'm putting that aside because I'm talking about the Victorian ones in the area that I study, but that happens to be.
Yeah.
So I looked them up. So you've got DeLille Engine dominates rubbish at Ballarat in a time 8 lengths slower than Chickapaw ran this year, same track and distance.
No, that's not fair. That's irrelevant. No, I'm not having that.
Well, let's go back to the race.
No, just that day.
So it beat Murphy's Reward.
Compare it to benchmark if you like. That's fine.
Okay, but it beat Murphy's Reward by 4.5 lengths.
Yeah, Murphy's Reward's like a -1 or 2 horse, right?
Yeah.
But at 5.5 lengths.
So
it's gone plus. It's gone plus.
Field,
if we're talking Vince's stuff, it's gone +5 with 59 kilos. Tell me when it's ever done that again.
Ballarat it has. No, hang on. You said Murphy's Reward's a -2 horse, and it's beaten it by 4 lengths. It's gone +3.
Sorry,
it's
it's part of my.
No.
I think 1.2.
But it's since won 4 city races. It was beaten 7 lengths in the Fast Caulfield Cup, and none of those other horses would have got to the home turn in a Caulfield Cup. It was the superior horse on the day that the market got wrong, and all the ratings blokes did some assault and said that is proof.
It started pretty well back.
No. But what I'm saying, the market got wrong. It won like $1.80, but on the day it couldn't have been $1.80. History says #. That it should have been.
I still haven't got a rating. So my method, right? So which was comparable. I haven't got another rating where it's got to that level with that weight. Okay, it's got there with 54 kilos a number of times.
You know I'm a weight skeptic, so we won't agree with that.
Well, I'm just saying that when it, you know, eventually it has some impact. You know what I mean? Like whether it's, you know, how 0.1 of a length or
Yeah.
whatever. It doesn't matter. So it's sort of got back in that sphere.
So
but
that's about Coppola.
it's not. But so the Coppola's that's fine. Like, I mean, Coppola's not one that I can be really accurate about, but I trust DK's numbers.
Yeah.
And I like just looking at the raw stuff I do. That's a 3-length peak.
So I walked into the pub today and I go, g'day, what's Ellie? I said, where's DK? Because I want to have an argument with him, but he's not here, so I can't. So
Yeah.
no, exactly. But
I'll argue DK's
Fire
case.
up. Get into DK a little bit.
I don't like it. So Coppola beats a horse called That's Entertainment by the dispatch of the day. Now I've asked DK this too. That's Entertainment was no good before the race. It was no good after the race. It was a high pressure race. They both came down the middle of the track at Sale, which, as you know, on certain days.
That's Entertainment come from behind it though.
Yeah, but one length behind it. That's no good at all. Electric Aura had no blinkers on, which it later got on. Had been 3 wide the trip on a fast pace. So those two horses were effectively in the sweet spot.
Coppola pulled wide as well. It had deliberately.
I'm saying Coppola and That's Entertainment both virtually had the same run. That's Entertainment took a length off it because it was right behind it and then got beaten this much. It's no good. So I don't know how you could say that Coppola's gone great when That's Entertainment's this far off it. When it's no good.
It went well, not great. It went well in comparison
I am
to its other performances. It doesn't have another comparable
No,
performance.
but then you have to say the other one's the same. The other one's exactly the same. That's Entertainment. The horse ran second to it.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
It was 30 to 1. One was 100 to 1, one
Yeah,
was 30 to 1.
I can't
They're
remember.
both no good.
I'm saying it was particularly. The other thing about Coppola too, it was ridden like it was a 7 to 2 chance. It wasn't ridden like 100. Like 100 to 1 chances are normally ridden for luck when they win it. It was just ridden like a dominant player in the race.
Because they went for. Anyway, so I Am Wanted, the other horse, one of the worst.
No, but there's no positive there. There's no issue.
No, but
No, DK was just
that
saying
the stables
that
had
there was
2 and
something
2
happening with the
days.
stable there. You know?
Right, so I Am Wanted, when it won its maiden, showed a little bit of pace early. It would have been, talking apples to apples here, because race 5 was 1,300 metres, it would have been when it led the maiden and fell in, 8 lengths off the leader at the 800 in
Yeah,
race
sure.
5.
But that's no one was saying anything about that. It was just
DK.
saying that you were saying the stable was in a bit of form that week.
Well, I'm saying it wasn't. It just happened to win 2 races. There's a difference. But like that, who's that horse of
And when by the way, DK and I got that wrong last week. It wasn't She's Extraordinary.
no.
It was. It might be a related horse, but it was certainly the same stable.
It's an equally tortured DK.
It's the same. It's a similar name, but it's a male version.
of the Caulfield trained horse, one of the smaller Caulfield trainers. It started favourite Princess Arrow, is it? On Saturday.
Yeah.
Did you give it any chance? Princess Arrow?
Yeah. It was a mare's race.
In a bad race.
In a mare's
But what I'm
race.
saying is, it had won its previous 3 races. It hadn't gone on your level. It just won 3 rubbish races. And I think sometimes in racing, we collectively say, well, that horse improved because it won. Sometimes it just wins a bad race.
Yeah, mate, that's true.
Look at Odyssey Moon when it won the Standish.
Yeah.
The steward said, why did it improve? We asked Robert Smurden. We did note that the sectionals were out 37, home in 33. Well, it didn't improve. It just was the one leading.
No, I disagree. That did improve. It still didn't do anything. It just went from
That's
terrible to okay. That's what it did.
hardly worse the stewards in crew.
No.
Anyway,
Well,
that's
So there's
the
others
worst
though.
defence of
Like
my
say
own.
the two stables that are particularly in the gun at the moment, I suppose,
Yes.
are the O'Brien and the Kavanagh stables.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, I haven't sat down there and analysed it all, but it's just. So are you saying that they weren't in any better form back in that period than they've been subsequently?
Well, this time last year, I said where it's not with O'Brien when it comes to their numbers, but this has been the equivalent of taking draft picks off. In
all right, well, what about the O'Sullivan stable?
Terry and Perrine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Because, and I've got no evidence to back it up, but they've got an inquiry coming up, haven't they? And it's hanging over their heads, but it doesn't seem to have affected the stable from for lack of a better term, an image point of view than what it has the O'Brien and Kavanagh
So
stable.
this thing too, because their horse is Darren, right?
Yeah.
And the really, I mean, the day that it tested positive, it was well backed, but it had previous runs that were more interesting, you know. Like so, it's Like, I just don't think it's an
This time
exact.
last year-
It's not an exact,
Yeah.
precise situation. But I'm just saying that my overall view is, if I just take a step back, I'm thinking some of these stables were, particularly had a lot of expensive horses, were having trouble competing, and they were willing to push the boundaries, which is not unlike sort of what happened with Essendon, is it? You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not. I don't know if it's a right analogy, but they were. And
This time last year, Mark Kavanagh's stable was having a fantastic month, 2 months, when all the fast approaching and all those horses were winning. So this was when they were under the pump. Danny's won many races since, but what's happened is that they've had a lot of owners' jobs.
I really like those stables. I don't want to lose them. I wish that like what we talked about with James McDonald previously, I'd prefer the stewards to go to them and say, let's just get this all out in the open, look at what's happened, discuss it thoroughly, try and get to the bottom of it so we can get to a situation where it's a really fair, even playing field for everyone, and our punters have got complete confidence in what we're doing.
6 glass eyes this time last year, I actually don't care that much about it. But what you actually mentioned that we're in agreement on about the way they approach on-track integrity issues compared to off-track, it does have my fucking head in. I don't want to say, it does mine. On too many races that they don't ask enough questions of. And you said that they're separate. I'm saying that they're definitely not separate because, and I am taking credit for this rightly or wrongly, I called out the way the stewards in Victoria were running a self-promotion campaign for their integrity services. And I've got a number of articles that involved Kane Ashby and Dion Villela, the Gotcha Squad. They had page 3 evidence of formaldehyde and all these other. They were promoting their testing, and they were accusing trainers left, right, and centre of cheating. Now I don't know if they were, but I am saying that the imbalance between what the coverage was. They had at first Dale Brown was doing integrity room crosses on racing.com. Would anyone know what Brett Clothier looks like? He's the AFL integrity officer, the biggest in the sport. No one would know what they look like. They were doing celebrity stewarding. Meanwhile, on-track rides were not being investigated properly, still aren't. We go headless as punters when we see one of ours that we like that's a good form goes from 4s out to 8s and then runs like shit, and then jockeys don't get tested. They test the jockeys but not the trainers, as in testing by questioning. When Blake Shin gives his horse no mathematical chance, not deliberately, but no mathematical chance of the Oaks, it's just, there you go. I mean, those things can't go on for us to have confidence when, Jumpy, all your mates who are smart punters full stop, load up on the BBL that last night had $37 million traded on it. We as punters need to have confidence that they're doing things. Now,
so on that point, I still think they should be separate conversations, and you don't, so that's just a disagreement. That's fine, but I would love to see stewards' reports saying these tactics were adopted on this horse. Stewards have looked into betting, and there's no suspicious betting.
That's right.
That's the sort of thing that I would like to see, and same with the. It's harder with any form of substance type off-track helping of horses because it's all retrospective.
Let me explain this to you.
When they do come out with the Coppola 1 or Kane Harris's or whatever, I would also like to see in that media release, or whether it's the stewards directly or whatever, not just a reference to the positive test, but some analysis of the betting.
That's right.
Now, I believe that Andre Casse, Alfie Matthews and Joe, the guys in there are doing that work, but it's not making into the reports. It's not making its way to punters,
which affects our confidence.
Yeah, and I think it really should. That information should come to punters, is what I think.
What I'm saying to you,
them guys all know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
No, I'm saying. I just want to finish on that. What I'm saying is that they look at a positive drug test, any of them, and says, right, we can prosecute a case because you should be there and you're there, so we can go to war legally. When we see a shit ride that's 4s out to 8s, and that the jockey snags it out the back and gives it no chance whatsoever, or the horse just can't go like the market mule couldn't, we find that too hard to prove. Yeah. So we don't try. Because if they did try, we would say, here's a number of cases. Last year there was one jockey who was prosecuted for a bad
Tom
suspension for a bad ride, Tom Sadler, and that was it. And under Terry Bailey, who's been 10 years? How many riders? How many high-profile riders for an on-track discretion, which means we don't include Damien Oliver because that wasn't for his ride; it was for him having a bet. Have occurred. So what? And when he was running the trots, and this is not personal against Terry. I'm just talking facts. When he was running the trots, Blue Magic was the back page headline. Meanwhile, drivers were getting away with, to use the old Glenn Holt line, they were making even money shots $1.
Maybe it's just their threshold's too high. They think it's...
They can't beat the race. That's their starting point.
No, I don't think that's true. There's smart guys in that group. Right? Like, they all know what they're doing. So whether it's Joe, Andre, or Alf, they understand it.
So why
their threshold must be too high.
Why when a Hugh Bowman goes to the front on preferment, does he get questioned for going to the front when they're walking?
But that was the stewards. I don't know if that's necessarily coming from those guys.
That's my point. My point is not against Andre or
no.
My point is against the stewards.
But I'm saying here's the
refuse to listen.
Here's the punters over here, or here's the punters here. There's the stewards, and there's the integrity team. And the problem is there's no path of communication between those guys who know what they're talking about. It's being intercepted by those.
Can I sum this up very quickly? Here's what we need to do: Integrity Department, Racing Victoria. We've got all this money. We've got a war chest, 75 million. Give the stewards what they need to actually put into the stewards report what the punters need. I've spoken to stewards both north and south of the border, and there's a lot more that gets asked that never finishes up in the report. Let's put that in the report. The other thing is, for these illogical rides, Potts wants to see the fear of Christ put into some of these blokes. So do I. Ask them the questions. It doesn't necessarily mean you have the evidence to prosecute them, but at least you're letting them know that you're watching what they're doing and that didn't make sense, and if you had the evidence you'd be prosecuting them, and I think that would slow them up a bit.
Let Des O'Keefe come and defend all these, because I'll tell you one thing that I haven't yet declared, and I'm going to tell it. 3 years ago I was on RSC and a rider got charged for a smelly ride. It didn't go through. Why? Because they did the usual, we can't legally prove it.
Yeah.
Now, good on the stewards, by the way, in this case. Can I come and have a coffee with you, Ralph? It was Des. Des wanted to come and have a coffee with me and chat about it. I said, Des, I'm running an independent film service. I'm on air giving my independent opinion. If you don't like it, bad fucking luck. Anything else you want to talk about? And we had a bit of a chat. It was very pleasant after that. But I was not going to be fucking intimidated over a chat. And guess what? When Racing.com started, maybe I'm too fat and ugly, and I accept all that. But what I am...
Well, you're in the fucking right camp here then.
100%. But what I am saying is, don't you think it's curious that when I was the only one on air asking questions of bad rides, and in this case I'd love to say more, but I know why I legally can't, that someone wants to have a coffee with me from the jockeys and say, you know, how this jockey was doing it tough and all that. So maybe I have got a bit more information up my sleeve than I actually ever reveal. That in any of the Racing.com coverage, you never hear criticism of a rider. Isn't that an amazing coincidence?
Well, it's sickening, and I think punters find it sickening.
But wouldn't you say that's the reason, Potts? Wouldn't you say the reason is that the riders collectively, as a group or individually, just make it really well known that they're not going to accept that, and that if you've got your employment online, as some of them do, and say, well, I haven't got a secondary income, that okay, I'll toe the party line, and that's bad for the sport. Never mind for the individual, it's bad for the sport.
Exactly, that's exactly my point. This sweep it under the carpet, only be colourful and patting everyone on the back, but only focus on the winners.
That's right.
How is that working for our sport? It's becoming more and more
irrelevant. The story in the paper
every...
was 7 apprentices rode the winners. What was the story from the punter's perspective? Jake Bayless slaughtered on City and Raw, and Talia Hope slaughtered Invincible Owl, both apprentices. But we don't cover that, do we? We as punters.
So when I initially watched that Capello race, I thought, geez, I feel sorry for the punters that have backed Invincible Owl, but when I look at that race, I wonder what the stewards aren't asking questions about that race. I mean, it was a funny race. There was the leader was a very low class horse, it was a maiden, but gee, like 13 lengths slower than Rocket Tommy. It's just wow. Over 1,100 metres.
All right. Today's punter Pro Punters panel's gone longer than War and Peace. We're going to wrap it up here. So we've got to get onto a few things that we got some feedback on last week.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
First of all, while there's been breaking news, Darryl Braithwaite's ill. He won't be able to perform at the Australian Open this week. Who's going to sing the horses? So we've got that.
Put the Cox plate in jeopardy?
Oh, well, we might have to put that back to the order.
Darryl.
Please get ready before the spring, Darryl. Do what you need to do. Exactly.
Is there a Darryl Braithwaite cover band like the Bleach Street Band? And
Well, we need to find that out. And second of all, we had some feedback to do with the wines and the food that we mentioned, because punters love eating and drinking. So we had one from Gary Booth who wanted to take me to task on the sauce issue. Gary, you can keep your sauce in your fridge, mate, but I'm telling you, no one wants to eat cold, thick sauce. Put it in the pantry, you'll love it. Snowy also had a different take on this. He goes, the unopened sauce lives in the pantry, the open sauce lives in the fridge. And that leads to just...
I'm with you on that one, Snowy.
Well, all that means is that every time Snowy wants sauce, he goes and opens another packet out of the pantry.
Hot pie, cold sauce, Chappy. Like, is this a case of like individual choice? And why are we trying to have a debate?
Sorry,
about
I didn't realise we were living in Central Africa where it's so hot that you need cold sauce pots. Come on. Right. And Lee Jones got
the Jappy, it's not. It's communist Jappy land. And
like, are you serious? Like, it's got to be room temperature. Like, you don't want to put cold sauce on a hot pie. That makes fucking no sense. And the other thing that Lee Jones tweeted into us, he said, chopped frozen onions in the freezer. Where else would you keep frozen onions? Not going to keep them on the roof. And he also said Belvedere vodka for, it doesn't matter whether you've had a good or a bad day. That's the spot to keep it. Now, I've had a couple of drinks today, it's quite warm. If I was going to carry on with it and I was going to go out, where I'd be heading to later on for a drunk man's feed is West Melbourne, because there's a big taxi depot out there, Potts, and that's where all the taxi drivers go to get something to eat in the middle of the night shift. And you can get one of the best hamburgers with a lot out there. It is tremendous. It's the Embassy Taxi cafeteria out there in West Melbourne, punters. If you're out on the Penanique here in Melbourne, and if you're not like Shannon Knoll where you get kneed in the abdomen after getting thrown out of the Crazy Horse strippers, you can head down there and get yourself a hamburger.
That's
on the
down
way
near
out.
the Spencer Street station. In
Correct.
Yeah. Good. Got my bag.
Failing that, the flower drum.
What do you got for us, Ralph?
Oh,
Any sort of life tips?
well,
I've got a life tip. There's a box set TV show, because I like being at home now at this stage of my life for obvious reasons. Orange is the New Black.
yes.
Is an outstanding show. It's set in a women's prison, hence the orange gear. I think we're still allowed to be heterosexual. The lead called Taylor Schilling is not she's a good-looking woman, but that's not why I like it. But very well written, very humorous, and thoroughly recommended. I'm halfway through series 3, and it goes very, very well.
Well, I have a follow-up question for you, Ralph. Have you seen... Now I've completely forgotten what the name of the show is.
Nothing you going to say is funnier than the
Foxtel
taxi rank.
No, the Foxtel jail series with Frankie Doyle, and it's basically the remake of Prisoner.
Right.
And I've watched both all of Orange is the New Black.
Who's Finnegan?
She's in there. I'm telling you now, Orange is the New Black's very good, but my wife's going to kill me for not remembering the name of the show. It's better.
That's next week.
So when I sober up, I'll eventually remember what the name of that show is.
I'm going.
Boys, it's been. If you want racetrack stuff, head to at racetrack. He's at RT Ralphie on Twitter, or head to racetrackralphie.com.au. If you want pots and stuff.
No, the only tip I've got for anyone, so this shows how boring my life is. If this goes up before Sandown, race 6 tomorrow, conspicuous maid looks particularly well placed.
You can head to Wonderfollow to get the Potts' play and the full sets. And
someone who walks the track before he gives his opinion.
And if you see me at the Embassy Taxi cafeteria later on tonight, you know that this show won't be up before Sandown. Good luck, punters.